Welcome to the 25th Hour podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Curly Malice, time strategist, helping busy business owners figure out how they can accomplish more without actually working more. And this is a new format, so I'd love some feedback on what you thought. Today's guest is Tina Reger, who is the founder of the law offices of Christina Reger, LLC. So she is a women-owned firm. She handles litigation and counseling matters related to labor and employment for corporate, entrepreneurial, and startup enterprises. And she is fun. I've known Christina for a couple of years, and we had a blast before we even started the recording. So sit back, listen in. You'll hear about the work she does as an employment lawyer, and you'll also hear about her productivity bottleneck and some ideas of what she can do to overcome that bottleneck. We have a treat today. It is Tina Reger right here on the 25th Hour podcast. Welcome, Tina.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited too. And I will share with the audience because I don't feel the need to hold much back, as we all know. Tina and I have already been chatting for a half hour. I hadn't even turned on the recording yet. So we are really warmed up. You are in for a treat today. So Tina, tell us a little bit about your business.
So I own my own law firm. I started it 4 months before COVID happened. Great time to go into business. But I focus on employment law, and my business focuses on working with employers. I do both employment law counseling and compliance, and I'll tell you a little bit about what that is, and employment litigation. So on the counseling and compliance side, I love to work proactively with businesses. I love to build that relationship with them and make sure that they're complying with the law in the most cost-effective way. And as the laws change, make sure that they're up to date on the latest regulations. On the litigation side, if and when they do get into trouble, they get that Department of Labor audit, that EEOC complaint, I work with them through that process and help them through that litigation.
What made you decide to go out on your own?
So a lot of things. I think I was looking for that next challenge. I had been a partner at a law firm in the city of Philadelphia I was with the firm for 13 years, but I was a partner for more than 5. And I just was kind of looking for that next level of, challenge. And so I said, this is the time. And every single one of my clients came with me. I had built a client base already. So that was great because I didn't have to leave and then find clients. I already had clients. And so I took them with me and continued to work on their cases. And then COVID happened and it became a whole new world because from an employer standpoint, COVID was an employer's nightmare.
Right. A game changer.
It was a game changer. And for all that COVID was on the healthcare front, it was an employment issue. Like all the businesses had to close. What do you do with your employees? Laying employees off, learning a new word called furlough. And what does that mean? And how is that different than laying somebody off? Bringing them back, unemployment, opening your business, closing your business, opening it and then closing it again, masking. There was just so much and it changed every day. And so that was the perfect storm of how do you make sure that employers are doing what they're supposed to be doing and keeping up with all the new regulations that were coming out.
Right. Well, it's like doing what they're supposed to be doing when you don't even know what that is from one day to the next.
Well, right. And so, for example, the first, I should have had it on the desk next to me. The first employee regulation that came out was the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act. That was 1,500 pages long. So when I printed it, it was like this big to read on a Saturday morning. So no employer is going to do that when they're scrambling to open or close or maintain or make their business virtual. Like, who has time to sit down and read 1,500 pages of law?
Right. And so what resources did you use to stay up to date?
First and foremost, my Navo Network. We had a group of Navo lawyers, and it's funny how things happen. There was a group of us, we were all employment lawyers. And when we first kind of got together and everybody said what their specialty was, here I'm thinking like, oh, great. Like, how are these lawyers going to help me? That we all do the same thing. Like I can't refer business to them because they do the same thing I do. And so when COVID happened, we all jumped on a call together, and we were literally the first 2 weeks, I think we were on a call almost every day. And we would parse through the law, digest it, create synopsises, create toolkits, create templates, work through issues. And then as COVID continued, we created ways that we could help each other. Like if I did a presentation, I shared it with them and said, here's the template presentation, use it, modify it. And so we used that cost effectiveness to minimize the work that we all had to do and helped each other. So that was probably the single most biggest thing that I did to get through it, because I'm a party of one.
Right.
So it was just me and dealing with all my clients, plus the new clients, plus I did a lot of speaking. And I have a number of contract lawyers that work for me that helped get through the work. But that was really what got me through, was that network.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, kind of figured that would be your answer.
Well, and a little tidbit of secret is that we called each other the Hive,
Mm-hmm.
like, because we were so like busy bee hive.
Right.
And so if I got a question from an employer that I didn't know the answer to, I was like, oh, I got to take that back to the Hive. And one time I said it out loud, and the client was like, excuse me? And I'm like, oh, I'll get you that answer.
That's funny. So what is it? Was it employment law in general that piqued your interest, or is that somewhere that you just fell into?
So it's kind of funny how things come full circle. When I first got out of law school, I was actually in my last semester, and I was interning for a law firm, and I was doing employment law. And then I went on to, my big law firm that I had a job with, and they put me in family law, which I hated, because I don't like that hateful, hate each other type of adversarial process. It's just not who I am. And so I was there for a number of years, and then I went to the firm that I was at for 13 years in Philadelphia, and it was generally a litigation firm, some construction litigation, but mostly just general litigation. And I just wanted to build something for myself. And my father's was a small business owner. I come from a family of small business owners. And so I always loved that family business, build it yourself type of philosophy. And I wanted to build relationships with clients. I didn't want to fight. Like I'll go to court and I'll fight if I have to, but I wanted to collaborate. And so I looked at all the cases on my desk, and they were all employment law cases. And I was like, I can help these businesses cheaper, better, faster than any big firm in the city and undercut them in price. And so I created like this employment law counseling practice at my prior firm. And they gave me full reign, like, go ahead, run with it. And it was before any other firm kind of offered that type of service. But what I was looking at was trends that were showing that employment litigation was up 450%. And so that's how I started creating that client base. And then I was off and running. So that's how it happened. And
So
then it's doing the same thing I did when I was finishing law school, right? So
Right.
kind of came full circle.
Isn't that crazy? So what's one tip that you would give? So if someone's listening right now, they have employees, what's one tip you would share with them?
So this is my tip, and I've been kind of broadcasting this in every presentation that I've done. And I'm not going to go political on you, I promise. But employers need to understand that a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress is very different, and Democratic philosophies are pro-employee. And Republican philosophies are pro-employer. So think when Donald Trump was in the White House, like business corporate tax got cut, Department of Labor budgets got cut. Now all of those things are becoming very well funded. And so as an employer, my business tip to you is make sure you're complying with the law. Those agencies are becoming well funded again. They're going to see a lot of money. You're going to see a lot of investigations. Make sure your policies are up to date. Look at your handbooks. it's worth your time and energy to make sure that you are complying with the current laws and regulations.
It's always important to follow the law, but now
Right.
we have a whole nother reason
Right.
why you should follow the law.
Completely.
And we had our friend Jennifer Corso on a couple months ago, and she has a phrase which I'm wondering if you agree with. Her phrase is, you can pay me a little bit up front, or you can pay me a lot after you screw up. So pay me up front to get everything ready and organized, or ignore it. And then once you get sued, you can pay me a lot to go to court with you.
Well, and it's funny because I always say the same thing. I say, penny wise, pound foolish. Like, it doesn't cost that much. Like, people think, oh, it's going to cost so much money, but it really, like, let's put the bare minimum in place. And then as you grow, you'll understand what you need to grow and what policies you need to put in place. But having that understanding and saying, here's the bare minimum of what you need to get by. This will protect you.
Yes. Yes. All right. So we can see you're passionate about what you do. And when the world is your oyster, everything's working great, it means you have more time to help more clients, because you're not in it not to help. Like you said, I really wanted to help build something. And as a business owner, and I know that you are a busy business owner, sometimes something can happen that we don't get everything done. So what I'd love to know from you is, what do you think it is that causes you to not get everything that you want to get done in a day?
So I think COVID, on top of this horrible thing, and email, has created ADD for me. And so not getting everything done is, you text me, oh, I can get that to you. Oh, my secretary just called. Oh, I can get that to you. Oh, let me start this. Oh, and at the end of the day, I've started 10 things and never finished any of them. And then I'm up at night which is not my good time, trying to get things done and get to those things either that was on my intention to do that day, or that I promised, and I always try to please. So I'll say, oh, I can do that today for you. Well, if I didn't have the 20 other things on my desk, I could do that today for you. So just that, trying to be super responsive and creates this feeling of, I didn't get anything done today.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And for those of you watching, you'll see that our format has shifted a little, and Tita was agreeable up front that she would share what's happening. And so what we're seeing here is there's a bottleneck. There's a productivity bottleneck that's happening. Usually what will happen is someone can share, okay, I think this is what it is, and then it's probably not it. And we're going to dig in a little bit deeper and see, is it really the distractions that are the bottleneck that's turning this, I have to do this, I want to be super responsive, and then, or is there something deeper? And so we're going to dig in a little bit more to see if that is really what it is. So
I'm scared.
Right? Yes, you should be very scared. So you had said COVID, you feel like COVID was a piece of this. Did you find that that idea of trying to be super responsive all the time was happening before COVID and it was a distraction, or is it COVID?
I think it got worse with COVID, because I think it was happening before, but with COVID, everything was a fire. Every call was a fire, and most of them were not like, so I'm working on preparing for a hearing for next month. That, takes me hours at a time. I find that to be very difficult anymore, because the phone's ringing or the text is happening, and so, but with COVID, it was like, you could get 15 emails, and each one, if you pulled them apart, could only be a half-hour call or an hour call. Well, if I took 15-hour calls, that's 15 hours.
Right.
And so where's the other stuff that I was going to do? And so when you look at each question that you get, it was like, oh, well, that's easy. That's an easy answer. But it was a matter of saying, well, no, it's not that easy. You have to set up a consult. I want to talk to you. I want to get a retainer out to you, because what I found in the first 2 weeks was I was spending the entire day answering, hey, I just have a quick question, from people that weren't clients or were, colleagues, and I would have 2 days of absolutely zero billable work.
Right.
Just because I wanted to help people. And I'm like, wait, like I need to live too.
Right.
And so it became that, process.
Okay. And now that and I don't want to say we're post-COVID, but now that we're in a different space, let's just go there. How much of the stuff coming at you that you want to be responsive to, how much of that do you feel is fires? Like how much of them are fires?
Not as many. I feel like I'm still unburying from some of the work that I was able to push. But I also think, and it's funny because I talked to another novel lawyer. I don't know if you've spoken to her yet, Trisha Barada from Texas.
But send her my way.
I will. And so she and I talk about like recapturing. I probably brought in 150 new clients as a result of COVID. But some of them were just an hour consultation, and that was it. Like I offered discounted consultations, which I still do. And they just needed that 1 hour of talking to me and guidance, and then they were on their way. So it's how do you get back to them and start building that relationship with them? Because they're low hanging fruit. They already have an engagement with me.
Right.
They already have the experience of working with me as opposed to somebody brand new.
Right. Right. Exactly. So as we're talking about, the thing that's keeping you doing work at night, which is not your best time to work, is this being responsive. And so what I heard you say is the stuff coming at you now isn't really fire worthy.
Right.
And so my question then is how do you determine when you should be responsive to something that's not a fire?
Part of it is just setting, and this is huge for me, but also I think for the client, because I always find it's a better outcome, is setting the expectation to the client. So if I have a client that calls and they say, which just happened 2 weeks ago, hey, I need you to work on this offer letter for me. This is what I want to include. And I don't know how to do it because he's a new business. And I have the person coming in next week. So I want to get the offer letter out to them before then. So I looked at my calendar, and the next 2 or 3 days, I was really crammed up. And so, but if he wants to have this person come in, he's got to have some lead time. So I said to him, look, I can't really get to this until Friday. Is that okay? I can get it to you on Friday. I'll do it and get it to you on Friday, rather than me killing myself staying up at night to get this to him tomorrow when, maybe his schedule's flexible.
Right.
But
right.
Setting that expectation, like, hey, I can have this for you by next week.
Yes. So here's where I think your bottleneck actually is based on that answer. It sounds to me like you have the boundaries set with your clients. It's those other things that are coming at you that you're reacting to.
Yes.
So you're not setting that same awesome boundary, fair, well communicated, fantastic boundary with the clients that you are with everybody else. And that is your bottleneck.
Yeah, because I did it. It was very hard to do during COVID because, like I said, everything was a fire.
Right. But now, and so we get in that place of reaction. And then when that's gone, we're still there because part of that is that dopamine hit. Quick, let's react. Quick, let's do this. Mark it off the list. Quick, let's mark it off the list. And now we don't have to do that anymore, but we've trained our brains.
Right.
It comes in, we immediately react and push it back out. It comes in, and then nighttime, you're like, oh man, I still have to work on this very important brief. That's going to take me hours of quiet concentration. And so your piece isn't just the stuff coming at you, it's the setting of the boundary everywhere. And so I would even say go below that and determine what's a real fire for you. And then that's it. Everything else gets a boundary.
Well,
Sorry, and
and
you were going to say.
yeah, and I think so. It's interesting because I worked on this case that I have this hearing for on Sunday because I knew I wasn't going to get email, I wasn't going to get voicemail, I wasn't going to get text, and I had a big block of time that I could work on. And that's a novel concept for an entrepreneur because when you work for somebody else, you're used to working Monday through Friday, and so this kind of limitless boundary of when you can work, it has changed. And so, but I'm trying to do that during the week. Like Friday, I have almost the whole day free. I have no meetings, no calls. And so it's very easy, like, oh, Lisa wants a call with you. Oh, I have time Friday. Well, there you go. Half hour in the middle of the day. And so what I'm trying to do is block that off and go, no, I'm spending that time on that client. I'm not even going to open my email, and I'm just going to focus on that work.
Yes. Yes. Except for me. Like if I call, I get whatever I want. But
That's right. Absolutely.
That's the least corollary to the rule. But yeah, that's exactly because you own your own business. You can decide your calendar.
That's right.
Yes. So look at you. You were bottleneck adjacent. Like you had it almost completely figured out. It was just a little piece underneath. So
well, and I forget who I talked to. Somebody that I talked to said, figure out your best time to work.
I wonder who that was.
It might have been you. It might have been you. But somebody else that I interviewed in a podcast told me that too. And so what I started doing
that was the podcast for your semicircle.
It might have been. But I took that advice and I literally did that. And I said, my best time is from like 7 in the morning or earlier, depending on my gym time, to like 2 in the afternoon. And that usually I don't schedule any client calls then. Mm-hmm. That's when I do my work, I do my follow-up, I do my emails, whatever I have on my to-do list for the day. And then I schedule those client calls, those follow-ups, those, hey, I want to go over this policy in the afternoon when I'm fried. Yeah. And so that, and then I could take notes and work on it in the morning.
Exactly. And I love when someone quotes back to me stuff that I told them.
See?
So thank you.
And it's working. It's so working.
And working.
It's so working.
I love it. All right. So once you set your boundaries, once you figure out, okay, this is a fire, this is not a fire, I'm going to set the boundary, I'm going to do these things, you will get extra time. Congratulations, you have it. So that's what we like to call the 25th hour. How do you like to spend extra, like when you get that extra time, what do you like to do with it?
So funny thing, because I was just having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, when you're so used to work all the time, when you don't, and like this month seems to be crazy with kids, and both my kids are graduating from their respective, one from elementary, one from middle school, and the high school orientation and the doctor's visits and the camp starting, and like it's insane. Right. And so like every day by like 2:30, I'm like running to some appointment for them, or some graduation, or some new kid orientation, or so. How do you do that and not feel guilty? And so this was the conversation I was having with somebody that, Brene Brown says, write yourself a permission slip. And so like, I need a pad like this size to start. So that's my new thing. I'm going to try to do that. Like I give myself permission to take the afternoon off and watch my kids play in the pool. And because I feel guilty, like, oh, I should be doing that. I should be working on that contract. I should be, calling this person. And so that's a new thing. I'm going to try it. Stay tuned.
Right. I was just saying, we will update the show notes to include how that's working, but I love that.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm just talking to somebody yesterday about it.
Yeah. And if it's coming from Brene Brown, we know it's good.
I know. Know.
Absolutely. All right. So how do people get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me, because I am moving offices, excited to say I'm growing and signed my 5-year office lease, is through email. My email is Christina@cregerlaw.com. That's really the best way, or my website, www.cregerlaw.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being the first one on this expanded format. You rock. I'm so glad we got to catch up.
I am too.
What did you think about the different format where we dig into the bottleneck of our guest? I'd love to know. Shoot me an email at lisa@impactivestrategies.com and give me your feedback. Also, if you are similar to Tina and you're thinking, okay, I think my bottleneck is distractions and the solution really isn't boundaries, like there's something else going on there, here's a quick suggestion for you. Think about your distractions in terms of, are they internal coming from your head or external coming from somewhere else? And then based on that answer, dig a little bit deeper to figure out what is it that you can do to minimize those distractions. In Tina's case, though her bottleneck somewhat was distractions, it was more about fires, figuring out what fires are really fires and which ones aren't, and how do you work from there. Yours may legitimately be distractions, in which case you want to dig in internal or external. And a great place to go for information around productivity bottlenecks is impactedstrategies.com/cost. It's where you can figure out how to figure out your bottleneck, what is costing you in time and in money, and a couple of solutions.